walk around with tension in our shoulders, scrolling headlines that make our stomachs drop, checking news feeds that seem designed to keep us anxious. We tell ourselves we shouldn't care so much, that politics is just noise we can tune out. But the stress doesn't go away. It shows up in arguments at dinner tables, sleepless nights before elections, and that nagging feeling that the world is spinning out of our control. What if understanding how politics actually works could lower that everyday stress? What if clarity could replace confusion and agency could replace helplessness? Welcome to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. I'm Ria, and this is the show where we explore what really supports our mental and emotional well being. Not through quick fixes or empty optimism, but through honest conversation and practical insight. Today, we're asking a question most mental health podcasts don't touch. How does political understanding affect our daily peace of mind? Joining me today is Henryk, a writer and a political thinker who helped pave the way for the solidarity movement in Poland in the 1970s and 80s, work that contributed to the fall of the Soviet Union, and who now lives in the Chicago area, bringing that hard-won perspective to understanding politics and change in America. Hi, Henry. Thank you so much for being on our show today. How are you?
I am fine, and I'm very happy that I'll be able to share some of my experiences and my book, Can America Ever Be Great Again?
We're very glad to have you on our show, and I'm really excited about speaking to you on this topic. So, Henry, my first question is this, right? A lot of people believe that paying attention to politics makes stress worse, and that the healthiest thing to do is to disconnect from politics. But you're saying something different. What do you think people get wrong about the relationship between political awareness and mental well being?
Well, the I understand people who are frustrated because people are a little confused with the mixed messages, and there's also overwhelming message from the media and politics trying to convince people that politics are so complicated, and for most people it's hard to understand. So if you listen to politicians, most politicians says, trust me, I know better, trust me. When you read major publications or you listen to the major news stations, you have the same message. We did some investigation, we checked, and we decided that this is the truth. Trust me. And then whatever people following those advices vote, they got the politicians in the government, and they feel screwed up. And in America, one of the classic examples, let's say even two classic examples, are our faulty or dysfunctional healthcare policy and immigration policies. Both of them cause a lot of problems. Immigration policy caused a problem because all those immigrants are coming as the chaos. People get confusing messages. On one end, they see that wherever immigrants are, they work, they bring benefits to community. And on the other end, they have the messages that immigrants are the problem. And there's certain, chaos in that situation. And in healthcare is even worse because the cost goes up. People need more healthcare because of certain behavioral problem, they get obese or whatever, but also because they are misinformed. So people basically feel that getting even minor health issue can bankrupt you. So there's a lot of stress. Then the healthcare policy is associated with the employment. So one of the most common sources of stress, which I noticed, is that, let's say somebody has a job which they find this is very stressful, they don't like what they are doing, but that particular job offers certain healthcare benefits which other job may not do. So it is tremendous stress for the person because person feels entrapped in the situation which they cannot make as much money as they want to, or they don't do what they want, they like to do, but they have to do it because of the healthcare benefits. And the stress of losing that job, possibility of losing that job, is felt. So those are just the two examples. So you see how politics can affect us, and this is very painful. So what my observation is that we need to understand better politics. I had relatively personal experience with my book. As my English is a second language, I learned it as an adult. So after I wrote my book, I had a close family member who doesn't like politics, doesn't read political books. Her husband is complaining that when he is watching news, she asks him to turn TV on when she is in the room because she cannot handle that. But it just happened that that person is my close family member, and I was, and she's very good in English because she was educated in States. So I asked her to read the first the digital files just to look for some weaknesses because that person is well educated. And then later, after we had the printed book, I asked her one more time to read the printed version. So we are joking that she read my book twice. But what after a little being forced to do that as a courtesy from me, that person was very happy because she said that she understood the politics better. She said that book everybody should read because it allows you to understand what politics are all about, and it allows you to be more skeptical but also more educated when listening to the politicians and to the media. And whatever she even said that way, which I was very pleased, okay, because it was personal for me, is that if everybody read the books, things would be better in America because people would be making better decisions as citizens. And then we'll be all happier because, and then that ability to form the public sphere, to affect the public sphere, would give people additional satisfaction because you feel as a fulfilled person who contributes to society in the very simple and very basic way, and this gives you a lot of satisfaction in life, which means you are healthier mentally and you are happier.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that answer, Henry. That resonated a lot. I really like how you spoke about, you gave us examples of medical policies and immigration policies. And I love how you mentioned that in order to get better healthcare opportunities, people have to stay stuck in work or job that they do not really want to pursue, which can lead to a lot of stress. I also think there's a lot of insight in the book that you mentioned. And I really do feel that reading it can give us newfound understanding of politics and why it's so important that we
Mhm.
read about it. Absolutely. So, Henry, if in your book you also write about how political systems actually function, you draw on what you learned in Poland during a time of enormous upheaval. What patterns did you see there that help explain why people feel so powerless in their own political landscape, even in a democracy?
Well, the democracy is a system which, formally speaking, people rule. We
Yes.
basically, whatever politicians do, they have mandate from their voters. What is the problem? That in America right now, people lost the trust that their vote counts. They believe that there's certain elites, political, financial elites, that they rule the system, and whatever we vote, we get screwed up. And this is the core message of my book, because I'm trying to see why, because why we vote politicians which eventually we don't benefit from their decisions. And what I'm trying, okay, let's me maybe go back because this will be better. I try to understand, and this is the big part of my book. I try to understand what makes societies prosper. And I look at how America become prosperous. I read the book Why Do Nations Fail, by those guys who won the Nobel Prize for it. And they brought very uh, interesting and from different countries examples how nations prosper and then fail, what has happened. And what I see that always there is a classic dilemma for people choosing between freedom and equality.
Mm.
In order for us to be happy, we need to be free to do whatever, like, in the Declaration of Independence, it said, pursue happiness. When we have a freedom, we find the job we want, we do whatever we find is satisfying for us, and we have freedom to uh, be happy, basically. When we have that, some of us who are working a little harder, who have more talents, become more prosperous. And then, of course, there is a certain concern at certain point how that those people who are richer or more influential can use that to their benefit and to harm our abilities to be equally prosperous and so on. So then, when we have that fear, we try to establish government rules to protect our freedom, but to the fact we quite often choose to protect equality. So otherwise, we agree that certain our freedoms we have to give up in order to make sure that everybody gets, equal participation. And this is a certain dilemma when you look close into that, which is behind all our problems. Because at every regulations which we put in limits our abilities to pursue some of our freedoms, some of our ambitions, talents, and so on. And then when we go overboard with that, we create the system that in those regulations, for all practical reasons, only the richest can have the benefit. We all are in this disadvantage. So finding certain balance in that between equality and freedom, this is the key. And when we look what our objective should be, the prosperous society, what I showed through my examples, and also what's shown in that book, Why Nations Fail, by those professors who get the Nobel Prize for it, is that prosperous society are those societies where the big section of society, the majority, contribute in economical life freely. They are not cogs in the machines. They are the independent parts of the economy. So the question is how we can accomplish that in our modern technological society. And those are the challenges, because this was relatively easy to do in older societies before the industrial era. Because when most people in those prosperous societies at that time, like it was in early years of America, that most citizens were independent farmers, craftsmen, and so on. So this built the proper prosperity of America. With industrialization, technological progress, the example which I bring in my book, that if, let's say, a young man worked for the blacksmith in the village, so after, let's say, working about 10 years, he learned enough to open his own blacksmith shop. If someone started working for Ford Motor Company, the chances of the same person to start the next Ford Motor Company after working 10 years for Ford, it is not the same. So that the question is what we can do that in the modern society, people can get the same freedom working in the modern technology, modern civilization, modern technology, and so on. And this is something which I bring some examples in the book and some ideas how we can do it. But this is the core question, how to give people freedom back that they are independent. And this is something which we will, in order to do anything in that, we have to well understand the politics, how we have to understand how did we end up where we are right now. And one of the examples which I bring in the book, which is I have small chapter about it, is changing how we are working. Most of us try to get the job when what we should strive to be able to work independently. So I don't know if you had that experience. I just happened within the family. I had some people who worked, let's say, for Starbucks, and in Starbucks they had that option that when you were a worker at Starbucks, if you sign up for some small application, you could take a shift in this store, in that store, depends what your ability were. And this gives me an idea that basically we can make it across the board. If you want to work at the, let's say, Ford Motor Company or Toyota Company, you should have the same option. You shouldn't try to be a worker, let's say from 8 to 4 or whatever the time schedule is. You should be able to schedule that this week you work only 3 days, the other week you work 5 days, and there are applications that can be done. But what it means that then you will be not signing up for having a job. You just say, I have qualifications to be the line worker at Toyota. And then you schedule yourself a week or 2 weeks ahead. And at the time when you need more money, you will be working, let's say, 40 hours, maybe overtime if this is possible. But then when you feel tired or you have some family situations, you can work half of the time. And this is your choice. What it does, it gives you a freedom. You don't feel well, you don't need to ask your boss give you some days off. Okay? You have a problem with the child, and it is your business. But in order to do that, what we have to do, we have to divorce our regulations tying up healthcare to the workplace. So basically, in order to give you back freedom, which gives you sentimental comfort, we have to create the medical policy that will be buying medical healthcare in similar way like we buy car insurance. And we have to completely restructure the medical healthcare and diversify and understand the difference what in medical insurance and what is medical maintenance. Because right now health insurance covers some vaccinations, some preventive care, and whatever, which is I understand from the person who needs it, it is important. But in order to make healthcare working, we have to understand the difference between medical preventive care and medical insurance, which covers some medical conditions which might happen but might not happen. So understanding all those, it is hard for me to, within 3 minutes, explain a little bit complex issues, but simply what I'm trying to say, that in my book, I try to give people understanding the differences between medical preventive care and medical insurance, that they should be handled differently. Right now, they are combined in one entity. The government gives you everything. And then in America, for every citizen, between what government spends and what we spend, it costs us about $15,000 a year per person. And it is illusion that what government spend, we don't spend, because the government doesn't get the money from the trees. The government tax us, okay? So otherwise, if the government gives us some money, somebody needs to give those money to the government. And as you can imagine, the most people who contribute to the government, they are middle class, those people who work for a living. So otherwise, what we have a that cost of the healthcare carried by majority of population. And by the end of the day, those huge medical corporations have the elite of those billionaires who collect the money. And when you look at the statistics, they are getting richer and we are getting poorer. So simply understanding how this happened and how we can change it. And I'm bringing a very simple argument in the book that in most industrial nations, developed nations, the cost of health insurance per person is about half what it is in the United States. It's less than half in France and Germany, two very prosperous nations. So simply, if we will lower the cost of healthcare to the health of it is right now, it means that in average, there will be additional about $7,500 per person left for everyone. Because those will be the money which I wouldn't spend or you wouldn't spend, and those will be the monies the government would not tax us to give those money later back to us or to others. So otherwise, the family of four, I mean parents and two kids, will have in their disposal additional $30,000 every year. It's like getting a new car every year. So this is understanding how it works and what the potential is. And I see that we can make certain political decisions, and I outline it in the book very clearly what to do and how to do it, that we, within the next few years, we can get a meaningful improvement in that regard.
Absolutely. Yeah,
This is what you want to hear.
I think no, of course. I really agree with you, and I think there was a lot of insight in the answer you shared. I think you started on the themes of freedom and choice, and you also took us through the economic situations and the complexities of all of that, and the government and healthcare, which are all really important topics that I think people are not really aware of on a deeper level. Your book also sounds like an amazing read for someone who wants to get into politics and start understanding it better. So thank you so much for that. Henry, if there's a listener today who's feeling particularly inspired by our conversation today and wants to explore your work or connect with you, where can they find you?
Well, my book is basically right now everywhere where the books are sold. It's on Amazon, it's on Barnes and Noble, is in many independent bookstores. I think is already on Google Books and Apple Books, or will be within a day or two, because the applications are in process. So as long as you, wherever you go and buy your book, you should be able to find it.
Good. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Henry, and for having this conversation with us today. And for everyone listening, I think a lot of us have been taught that caring about the world means carrying anxiety, when really it can mean the opposite. It can mean finding solid ground. It can mean pursuing choice and freedom. And if today's conversation stirred something in you, sit with it. Ask questions that go deeper than the headlines. Sometimes it's the stress we carry isn't always about what's happening out there. Sometimes it's about not knowing how to think about what's happening. And that we can change. Thank you, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you very much for
Okay,
having me.